Our species is peculiar and confused in a variety of extremely serious ways that we can change if we can understand them and how we got confused and why we stay confused. And it seems we have a fascination with the possibility of other intelligences. Religion is basically everything about other intelligences in an alternate universe or in a super universe. And then all of our ideas about fighting aliens from other worlds or contacting alien intelligences arise from the same place. One of the things I think we would be very surprised to learn is that these remnants, our religions and our fantasies about the aliens and such, are like the skeletons, what's left over of what used to be actual experiences and relationships, not necessarily with the things that we imagine, but with other intelligences and intelligences of a higher order. One of the most provocative things about this is that our languages themselves are the artifacted remains of an aspect of those contact experiences. And what that means is they contain within them accessible intelligence that encodes the histories and stories of our transition from animal consciousness to representational consciousness. In fact, our languages are almost the fossilized remains of those histories. But what I want to talk about is that we've failed to notice some really profoundly obvious things about our nature and nature itself. And one of those things is we cross gaps. Everywhere you look, we're crossing gaps. To be born, your father crosses an incredibly complex gap from his birth to his meeting and fertilization of your mother. I'm crossing gaps to you using coded tokens that you can parse and understand, apprehend. I'm crossing gaps in time, in mind, my own mind, to your mind, in ideas. I'm crossing gaps between endless kinds of groups and histories that we could specify and define and analyze even mathematically. We love transport. We love to go across. The symbol for our religion is actually a cross, and it's a symbol of going across to another universe. Language and our relationships with intelligence are intimately linked with something we've never really imagined. And that something is nature, it's Earth. What we're looking for, it's this place right here. It's everything that is actually present. But especially the living places and the remaining ecologies of our world. A long time ago, a very long time ago, before our cultures had produced representational animals, or before we were representational to the incredible degree we are now, and so we were more like animals, we were immersed in other orders of intelligence as nature. The river and the sky and the mountain, and all of the animals and living plants, the living places, were the local body of a distributed intelligence that is older than time as we ordinarily understand it. And we have a peculiar habit of trying to optimize whatever gains we can make in our representational apprehension of the world, thus mathematics and the sciences and many of the arts. So it's as if we're climbing up into we're crossing a gap between the known and the possible. And we use our intelligence and many other faculties, our fascination, our intention, our intuition. But we're climbing, or sort of leaping up into the impossible and bringing structure from the impossible down into the real as humans, as our human thinking and activity. And over long periods of time, our languages have evolved alongside this process of the establishment of the cultural, intellectual heritage of mankind, the representational heritage, which we slowly acquire at birth, and our minds become, how shall I put, well, they become reshaped by those acquisitions, and also in some ways repurposed. But what I want to get at here is interesting. There's accessible intelligence. The nature of intelligence is not like we imagine. It's distributed rather than local. What you have locally are expressions of that distributed intelligence, which means effectively your mind is touching all of the minds that ever were or will be in a way that is completely unique to you and yet utterly complete. And what this means, I can't say exactly, but it's filled with potentials that we've never dreamed of. We're looking for intelligences in space, and our crude and naive ideas about what these might look like are exaggerations of peculiar features of actual intelligences that exist here with us now. And the reason for that is kind of surprising and kind of simple. The Earth is a planet in space. And space, we can imagine, is a medium of incredible extent. But one of the things you don't get are instances of things in the medium that share nothing of its character. You don't get that. And what I mean is, Earth is like a condensation of the nature and history and character of time-space. So too are our minds, but especially the living creatures of Earth, which are, in a sense, embodiments of the ongoingly developing character and intelligence of space-time itself, of the sun, of the entire history of life on our world. There are orders of accessible intelligence here we've been too timid to imagine, while we instead worship and are terrorized by fantasies of incredibly crude and naive form. And the thing that I'm hoping to get to before I go here is just the shocking evidence of this is our languages. Our languages contain structured history. It's inaccessible to us because, for example, we don't suspect that letters have meaning and identity, and that they have metaphoric capacity as symbols. Yet they do, and our language is filled with this structured, metaphoric history. A brief example would be like the word fire, right? If we imagine that F, in this case, stands for fractioning, and I of something whole, and R as radiation or radiating, and E as energy, we can see that the fractioning of a whole will radiate energy, the speedy fractioning of that whole. And it's written in the word, but we would never find it there because we don't think of letters as having particular symbolic qualities, or especially rather flexible symbolic qualities within a range for each symbol. But as I said, we are gap crossers, and our language is the record of crossing gaps. It's the record of contact with an intelligence that did something far more than language. And what we took from that contact, or those contacts, was the lesser capacity of representational denotation to to make tokens about reality and compare them and analyze them and replace, in some cases, reality with these tokens. There's a word aion, or a fragment actually, aion, a suffix usually, that in my mind is symbolic of our gap-crossing nature, this constant urge in myriad domains to cross and connect gaps. And the intelligence that we're seeking is in relation. It's funny that we have this word relationship, as if a relation is a vessel. Indeed it is. And it becomes a vessel crossing many kinds of gaps very quickly together, hopefully for wise purposes, to good ends. But in our case, not so often. This aion suffix is a profoundly significant remnant that shows up all over the place in English, at least. Each language, of course, is different and unique. There's one final thing I want to say, which is that the idea that our analytical prowess and our technologies are our strengths is confused. In our attempt to discover intelligence, we've failed to imagine its nature or common form, its close accessibility, and the almost terrifying depth of its profound, explicit, explosive vitality. Nature is a living intelligence. The entire universe is something more than an intelligence, more than our ideas of God, unlike anything our common ways of speaking or thinking would deliver. And it's weird when we try to, I think it's really strange that we imagine that alien intelligences would send signals with machines. In many ways, our quest for intelligence, even on Earth, has been ridiculous because it's been as if we're trying to contact dolphins with a robot. And we are so mechanical and analytical that we overlook the entire domain of relation, meaning deep and profound mutuality, instantaneous, continuous, self-extending, evolutionary. It's the nature of life on Earth. It's what gave birth to our minds, this kind of deep mutual relation with living places and beings, with other intelligences. Long ago, before we were too worried about what to call them or how they should be arranged in books. I don't know what the true nature of the intelligences that gave birth to our minds, perhaps our bodies, definitely our languages. I don't know what their true shape is, but they're accessible in and as our own human experience. Our minds are made of these histories. They are an instance of them. It's not like you're connected or you're separate, although you are distinct in many profound and fascinating ways, just not the ways our simple language implies. But to discover this is very uncommon. To touch it with your own direct experience is dangerous and rare. Yet we can learn to remember some of the key insights and senses and perspectives that will give us a glimpse into the reality of our relationship with nature, the cosmos, the history of life on Earth, and the future.